When I was a baby, my mum paid one of the local girls to take me in my pram to the park and back, and I've been pushed for money ever since. Look, I don't want to be one of those YouTubers who sort of bang on about how expensive running a YouTube channel is, but when you're self-funding this stuff, every penny counts. And I'm not telling you this as some sort of woe is me comment, but rather to illustrate that, I don't like to take a big gamble on a device. I'm not a big fan of gambling anyway. I did back a horse once, 7-Year Itch, I think it was called, but it was scratched. The thing is, with Anbernic, I've never felt that I've had to take a gamble. We're often told that they make devices with flaws in, and then they'll make another device a few months later and fix that flaw, which itself will have introduced another flaw. But I've never got the impression that people are unhappy with their Anbernic purchase. I certainly haven't been. I mean, my first handheld was the Cube XX, and I still love that thing, and I pick it up and I play it quite regularly. But that brings me on to the newly announced RGDS. And when Anbernic first announced this, I was actually really excited. It's got dual screens. It's a proper DS form factor. It's under $100. Everything looked brilliant. And then my heart sank quicker than a digestive biscuit in a tidal wave. For good or ill, the chip is the Rockchip RK3568, which began its career as entry level and is now seeking retirement. So I took to the internet to try and figure out what it could comfortably do. And what it could do most comfortably is put its slippers on, have a mug of cocoa, and drift off for an afternoon nap. Oh, it's not a bad chip, really. I mean, it's 11% more powerful than its sibling, the RK3566. I mean, that's the difference between walking briskly or running for a bus. And with these chips, by the time you get to the bus will have left the station anyway. For DS emulation, it should handle the entire library, full speed, no issues. In most cases, upscale to 2x resolution. That's what this chip does well, and it's exactly what a DS-focused device needs. But Anbernic has created confusion about what this device actually is. They have built a perfectly good horse and are now showing videos of it failing to win a boat race. Now, I've ordered this thing because each week I need a new device to throw into the volcano and sacrifice to the YouTube gods, but you do the same. What are you actually getting for your $120? And more importantly, what is the marketing telling you that the hardware can't deliver? Should we be shouting about this device from the rooftops, or have the specs made you clam up? I want to talk about the price first, because this is where the house of cards starts to fall down. Anbernic kept saying that this costs under $100, because technically it does. It's $99.99. It's $94 with the discount, so technically the device costs under $100. But you don't pay that because shipping adds another, I think it's $25 for US customers. I can't really get my head around that properly because I've seen people who have pre-ordered this and they've paid $120 in total. And I suppose that accounts for that extra delivery warranty thing that really should be included with the delivery price in the first place. Now, I'm in the UK and we have some extra taxes that Anbernic kindly adds on for us, and no other company does. So I've paid $135 for this unit. And that's about £100, and that's going to be important later on. It's also very frustrating. We're in this market where companies say under $100, and they often refer to under $100 delivered. Ioneo have just launched the Pocket Air Mini at $80 pre-sale, and we're expecting that to have $20 shipping on top, giving you a $100 total. That's with very generous launch discounts of $20, admittedly. MangMi offered around $10 off at launch, and their device was $80 plus $15, I think that was the shipping anyway. Again, and that means that under $100. Anbernic's launch discount is just $6. So when Anbernic say under $100, they're setting up this expectation that their competitors are actually meeting, and they don't. And that's important because $100 is what's called a threshold price in marketing. People will pay under it or over it, but they won't forgive you if you promise under it and then you deliver over. But the price frustration is minor compared to the expectation problem. Anbernic showed 3DS games in their promotional videos, the simplest 2D games in the entire 3DS library, and even in Anbernic's own footage, you can hear the audio stuttering. By showing 3DS games, Anbernic has created an expectation that this chip cannot deliver. Maybe 10% of the 3DS library might boot. Actually playable, maybe you're talking about, 1 or 2%. The games people want to play, Pokemon, Zelda, Mario Kart, they probably aren't going to work. And after showing us those 3DS games in their promotional videos, Anbernic's official spec sheet for the RGDS makes no mention of 3DS support whatsoever. They created an expectation that they knew and have now tacitly admitted that the hardware cannot deliver. And here's the thing. Nobody was really asking for a 3DS form factor for $100 delivered. We were all hoping for it, sure. But this could have been marketed purely as what it is, a dedicated DS device with proper dual screens. That would have been enough. But they showed the 3DS footage anyway, and now people got excited about this because they expected something that it just can't do. But for DS emulation, this thing should be pretty solid, with one fatal flaw, which we'll come to in a minute. Under the hood, this is going to be using the Drastic emulator, which I quite like. It's mature, it's optimized, it has full speed performance for the entire library of games. You're going to have hardware here with a functional gyroscope and a microphone for those games that want it. And for most games, you're going to be able to push the resolution probably up to 2x. That's kind of what this device was built for. And, it should do a really good job. The problem comes if you want a bit more, because Drastic hasn't been developed for quite some time. There are forks of it out there, sure, but its main contender and the main thing that most people use to do DS nowadays is MelonDS, which is in completely active development. It's got new features, it's got modern improvements, but it's a lot more demanding than Drastic. People have had problems playing with MelonDS on much more powerful hardware. There have been people on the Thor at the moment who are having the odd problem here and there with it, although, if you optimize it properly, it won't be an issue. Initially, when I saw this and I was looking through the specs and what it could do, I felt somewhat confident that MelonDS could run quite well on this chipset. Unfortunately, the more that I've looked into this, the more that I'm just not sure that that's the case. That's not really because the hardware is at fault or that it shouldn't be able to run stuff like this. It's just that the software, MelonDS, is just so much more demanding. There are things that Drastic doesn't do. One of which is a proper touchscreen functionality on the bottom screen. And I don't know how Anbernic are going to get around this. They'll have to ship with a version of Drastic that can do this. Now, there are forks out there that will do that. There's a very good one that I stumbled on the other day and I tried on the Thor and it's very good. And if you have that version of Drastic, that should be a really good option. However, you do lose things that you would have had in MelonDS. DSiWare isn't properly supported. I don't think Drastic has retro achievements either. And whilst that's not something that I'm going to worry about too much, I know that there are people out there who will find that a major sticking point. To compensate for these failings elsewhere, Anbernic has packed the software full of features like the ability to watch a video on one screen whilst you game on the other, or display a game alongside your gameplay guide or something like that, or even run two different games simultaneously if you're an idiot. This is something that a lot of people were looking forward to on the Thor. And for good reason. There is a genuine use case for these things. And it works well here. This is a major tick for the device. Now, size-wise, this thing is nearly the exact dimensions of the DSi XL. Now, that was a very popular size for the DS line, and I can see why Anbernic may have wanted to replicate it. We're getting 4-inch IPS screens here with a 640 by 480 resolution. Now, Anbernic knows how to do integer scaling properly. The 34xx proved that for Game Boy Advanced. They chose not to do it here. The two 4-inch panels are 2.5x scaled from the original hardware. As well as that, on the 34xx you have a screen that gives you 257 pixels per inch. It makes the images feel vibrant and sharp and just beautiful. Here, you're getting 200 pixels per inch. It should be fine, but it's a tad softer. Now, for the most part, Drastic's filtering is going to smooth things out, and it should look perfectly fine. But if you care about that pixel-perfect display, this is a major compromise. And as well as the lower PPI, turning on linear filtering, which looks like it's going to be a necessity, is also likely to soften the image even more. And the problem with that, of course, is that one of the major benefits of emulation over the original hardware is meant to be better screens with upscaled graphics. And it's at this point that we have to take a sharp detour back onto the bumpy road of pricing again. An original DS Lite costs around about $50 on eBay. Okay, it gives you native resolution and the screens might not be perfect, but they're what was intended for this system. In theory, the RGDS's screens should offer better clarity, even with that scaling issue. But whether or not it's worth an extra $70 really depends on how much you value save states, fast forward, and emulation features that just wouldn't be available on the original hardware. The DSi XL, which is arguably the better choice for new buyers anyway, is the same price as this second-hand, the same size as this, has IPS panels as standard, and is consistently praised by DS fans as the best of the DS range and for making the games look great. At this point, the $100 price is starting to look a little bit shaky anyway, and at this point on the journey, bumbling down the rocky road of price, we suddenly hit the boulder of despair, or what I call what else is available, and we get ourselves a puncture. And when we try and fit the spare tyre, we realise that the only spanner we have is the one in the driver's seat. Now, I may be milking this metaphor a little bit, but that is to say that there's other stuff out there for the same price point that will play at least some of the 3DS catalogue. The MangMi Air X costs $90 now, with shipping that's $110, but you're not going to get any surprise taxes added onto that. It's $10 less than what US customers will pay for the RGDS. The MangMi runs a Snapdragon 662 and can handle a decent chunk of the 3DS library. Not everything, and it's a compromised experience, but it's more than the Anbernic's chip is going to be able to manage. It does have this problem of being a 16:9 screen, so you have to make compromises on the size of your screens, or play the screens side by side, or maybe have a little screen off to one side. It's not perfect, and it is sometimes unsatisfying, I'll give you that. But when you're looking at buying a device at this price point, you're not just looking at playing one set of games. The MangMi Air X will handle everything under PlayStation 2 with a smattering of PlayStation 2 and GameCube games. Very small smattering at that, I should point out. I really wouldn't buy this device for GameCube and PS2. You shouldn't. But this is why the community reaction was so strong to this. It wasn't just the aging chip. It was the fact that Anbernic released a device that teased 3DS performance, but it couldn't deliver it. Right as new competitors were entering the market with more powerful devices for under that same $100 threshold. That the MangMi is so much more capable for less than the RGDS really devalues the price of the RGDS for me, and I'm pretty sure that it will do for a lot of other people as well. Most people aren't like me. They're not trying to get every device under the sun. And then we've got these new features that appear in these new disruptors as well. MangMi, ANEO with the Pocket Air Mini, Magic X with the 135. They've all got processors that will run everything under PlayStation 2. They all have Hall effect sticks and triggers, and Anbernic seems to have none of these things. What with the compromised screens and the pricing, the RGDS just looks less and less attractive. The RK3568 is generally considered suitable for PlayStation 1 and below. Anbernic's own footage shows it attempting some N64 and even Sega Saturn games, although your mileage on those more demanding systems will almost certainly vary. But where we actually sit here may be a little more complicated. Because if you want a dedicated DS-style hardware with authentic dual touchscreens, the RGDS is the only game in town for around about this price point. For $120, you're getting a device built specifically for DS gaming, and if that's what you want, then this is at least promising. As long as you know what you're getting into, as long as you realise that you're not going to get that 3DS performance anytime soon, despite what Anbernic's own marketing showed. As long as you know that you're spending over $100 once the shipping appears. As long as you know that you're not getting the latest emulation features or pixel-perfect scaling, as long as you're happy with those compromises, then this isn't a bad deal. I'm sure that paragraph alone will generate an awful lot of comments saying how wrong I am and how this is a terrible deal and that it's a terrible console and that Anbernic should be totally ashamed of themselves. But I'm not sure that's true. You see, there's a massive market of people who are, well, they're not really in the emulated handheld space. They're going to see this on platforms like AliExpress or Amazon, or they'll see adverts on Instagram that show off what the console can do, and they will buy it. And they won't care about integer scaling. I'm new enough to this hobby that I remember when I didn't care about integer scaling. They just won't care about the latest emulation features. What they'll care about is, can they put their games on it, and will the games run? And out of the box, their games should be able to run and run well. I own, 5 handhelds that already play DS games out of the box? And what I wanted from this form factor was something genuinely special, and my expectations for that were set, not really by the marketing, but from the 34XXSP, which is a device that I absolutely adore. I wanted MelonDS because I wanted the modern features. I wanted perfect integer scaling, Hall effect sticks and triggers, the sort of device that we should be expecting at this point. Now that the technology has made a bit of a jump forward, saying this will do PS1 and under, it's starting to feel like a compromise. But that alone doesn't make this device bad. It makes it a very focused device, and Anbernic have got a good track record of making good hardware with good form factors. They kind of know what they're doing. But I wouldn't pre-order this. Okay, I know. Look, I have pre-ordered this. But I mentioned, look, those YouTube gods need sacrifices, right? If I didn't need this for my channel, I would not have ordered it at all, because I've got the Thor, and that's incredible. And if you think that $120 is too much and you might want to save up for a more expensive device, then take a look at the Thor, because that will do everything that this can do and so much more. But if you want a DS device with dual screens, you're comfortable with the price point, and you're worried about buying older hardware because it might fail, then actually it's worth waiting for a bit and paying the extra $6, missing out on the launch discount, and waiting for reviews to come out. The device ships on December 15th. The reviews should come out fairly shortly afterwards. Some people might get review copies a bit earlier on. I'm expecting mine to be stuck in China for a week or so, because that seems to be what happens when I order any new device, but that's par for the course. But for now, I'm kind of really struggling to find a segment of the market who should be rushing out to pre-order this. And yet, despite all of these compromises, the device does seem to be generating quite a bit of buzz, especially from more casual audiences. It doesn't bring me any joy to make this video because I wanted to be incredibly excited about this thing. But even though I've bought this unit for my review, I'm actually still feeling buyer's remorse. I'm still feeling that I'm not quite getting my money's worth with this console. And that's kind of a problem, because I think a lot of other people are feeling the same way. But I'm going to try and put all of that to one side and actually review this unit properly. I wanted to put it up against a real-world DSi XL, but I can't commit to that just yet. Perhaps in a week if my next sale goes well. It's a whole business thing. I do have the 2DS XL, which I couldn't put it up against, but compared to the DSi XL, the screens on that thing aren't quite as good. It's a softer image for DS images. Anyway, that's it for this video. I'm sorry, it's probably not as funny as some of the others that I've put out, but I hope it was at least helpful for some people. If you did find this interesting, or if you'd like to continue my saga of purchasing and using an Anbernic RGDS, then why not hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon so that you'll get notified every time my bank manager calls wanting me to repay the loan. But until the next video, that's it from this particular video, and now I've said the word video so many times that the word has lost all meaning to me. So there's only one thing left to say. Thank you ever so much for watching, and happy gaming.